Welcome to Quizzical Nature Trivia, where everything is trivia and trivia is everything. My name is Brian, and I am joined as I am every week by my co-host Corey. I have been a local trivia host for the past couple of years, and I've really enjoyed myself. Because of this, I thought I should expand my horizons into a podcast form.
Hello, my name is Corey. I have been participating in trivia for the past about 6 years. Local trivias at pubs and bars. Wanted to expand my horizons as well. Share a little bit of this on a hopefully nationwide scale. Brian and I came up with the idea of, let's just start a podcast in trivia. It's something we are both very, very passionate about. For quite a few years, we've known that we are filled with a lot of useless facts. So we decided, why not share them with you guys? So thank you guys for listening in here at Quizzical Nature Trivia. So a little bit on how this game works. We will start off with a little back and forth between each host. We have prepared 5 questions for each other this week in categories that we are quite strong in. In the coming weeks, we will prepare 5 questions in categories we know that the other is strong in, and then 5 that we know they are not strong in. We will break up these points then into 5 and 10, varying between the not strong in for 5 and strong in for 10.
Following that, we will move into trivia sent in from our wonderful listeners. We'll take questions from you each week, and we'll take turns giving them to the other host to see if you guys can stump us. This week, since it is our first episode, we have chosen to take questions from our friends who have sent them in via Messenger or Twitter.
Normally, we would then follow those questions from listeners with a little section between our guests. Being our first week, we do not have any guests on, so we will forego that portion. Next week, we will have a few guests, so stay tuned for that.
And lastly, we'll give you a question to think about for the next week.
Yes.
Today, we have a theme for our trivia. Since it is our first trivia ever, we thought it would be a great idea to use the theme of firsts. So keep that in mind as we continue to go through these questions. But now we'll move on to our back and forth trivia section.
Yes. And this week I have decided to ask Brian the questions to start. In this section, we will keep a running tally to 50 points. First one to 50 gets a little title. After that, we will start back at 0 that following week and keep the title and bragging rights between each host as we go. So to begin, Brian, you have a category of lyrics. Disney's Frozen featured the song For the First Time in Forever. Within the lyrics of the song, how many salad plates does Anna claim they own?
That is a great question. And I think she says that they have 1,000,000 salad plates.
They have 8,000, she says. Who owns 8,000 salad plates? I figured that would be a really good one to lead off for you, given your love of lyrics and Disney.
I shall start with a TV show question here. Your TV show question. In the pilot episode of The Office, Michael says he has been the regional manager of The Office for 4 years. How long does he say he has worked at Dunder Mifflin?
In total or?
In total.
Okay. Oh, this is tough. I love The Office too. The pilot episode and the entire first season are a little tough to watch, but really take off in the second seasons all the way up until Michael leaves, so spoiler alert there. Let's say 10 years he works for Ed Truck?
No, in total he has worked 12 years.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
So he would have worked 8.
Yep. Okay. You got me on that one.
There's a fun fact for you for those Office listeners. The pilot episode was released on March 24th, 2005, and was viewed by 11.2 million people.
Good to know. All right, moving into your second round question with the category of WWE. This is a little sidebar question for you, not the actual question. Ric Flair made his professional debut in December of 1972 in which city?
I believe he made his debut in Charleston.
That is incorrect. It was in Rice Lake, Wisconsin for AWA Wrestling.
That is very interesting.
Yes, but back to the real question. In that debut, who did Ric Flair face in his first match?
If he wrestled in the Midwest, he might have wrestled Vern Gagne, who was the territory leader at that time.
That is incorrect. George Scrap Iron Gadaski.
That's the great thing about those old timey wrestlers is they have those like nicknames,
little
like
monikers,
like Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yes. Or now the Governor.
Well, the former Governor. We'll move on to a movie lines question for Corey here. In the first Tremors movie,
Great movie.
which character said, "Food for 5 years, 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration, Geiger counter, bomb shelter, underground, goddamn monsters"?
Great movie. It is a definite cult following. I know a lot of people do not appreciate it for its great work of art.
Me included.
Yes. That is obviously Burt Gummer.
That is Burt Gummer.
Yes.
Another fun fact for you, Tremors was the first movie for Reba McEntire.
Yes, it was. Also, fun fact, Kevin Bacon walked off the set during the filming. Couldn't be found for half an hour, 45 minutes. He was finally found by a film set member. He was on the sidewalk, face down, yelling, "I'm a movie about worms. It's a movie about worms." There's your little Kevin Bacon.
Little Kevin Bacon knowledge
For the day. All right. And moving on to video games. Making his first appearance in July 1981 in the arcade game Donkey Kong, Mario, or then known as Jumpman, was portrayed to have which profession?
I want to say he wasn't a plumber at this time because they did that for his own games.
Correct.
I would say that he is a handyman.
Ooh. The answer is carpenter.
Ooh.
I don't know.
I don't know. Carpenter is different than a handyman.
Okay. Yeah, that's a close one. You're on the very close track there.
I was.
So to recap here, the score so far is 5-0.
We'll move on to sports, though. Corey, in Super Bowl I, the Packers and Chiefs squared off, with the Packers winning 35-10. Who were the two teams that lost to the Chiefs and Packers before the Super Bowl?
It's a very, very specific and hard question.
While we sit here and think about it for a second, let me tell you that this was the only Super Bowl to be aired on two different channels. NBC had the rights to the AFL, and CBS had the rights to the NFL, so it was aired on both channels.
I honestly don't know this one. I'm going to go ahead and say Chicago and Oakland.
No, that would be the Dallas Cowboys, who lost to the Packers, and the Buffalo Bills, who lost to the Chiefs.
So there's one more loss in the Buffalo Bills history.
Yep. Sorry, Buffalo.
Superheroes for Brian's next category. First appearing in a June 1955 edition, Ace, a crime-fighting dog, teamed up with which superhero and made appearances then sparingly again throughout the 50s and 60s?
Well, Ace is Batman's dog, so that would be Batman.
Correct. Correct.
He is also featured heavily in Batman Beyond.
Correct. I wanted to keep separate those, though, from the comics and the movies. Yes, Ace does make quite a few appearances in the animated series later on.
Also, Superman has a dog, and his name is Crypto.
The more you know.
There you go. We'll go on to Corey's next question under science.
Science.
The question is, who first discovered penicillin?
Yeah, I should know this one. He should be a household name for not patenting penicillin. I don't know this one.
Well, that would be Mr. Alexander Fleming.
That's funny.
He discovered it by accident as well.
All right. Moving on to your final round here. NBA. In which decade did the Lakers first play in Los Angeles? A little tidbit of fact here for you is Brian is a very, very large Timberwolves fan. So this rubs a little salt in the wound here of the Lakers moving all of the Minneapolis Lakers championships to LA, where LA has no lakes at all.
Yep. I believe that happened. I want to say it happened in the 70s, but that is probably wrong. So I'm going to move one decade up and say the 60s.
That would be correct.
Yes.
The 1960-1961 season was the first to be played in LA. So for those of you keeping track at home, the score is 10-5. So that will be a score going forward to next week is Brian with the lead of 10-5. Savor the flavor, kid, because it's sure not going to last. The greater host will rise to the top.
He says.
I'm very, very humble as well.
Yes. Now we will move on to questions from our wonderful listeners. This week, as it is our first episode, we went out and asked some of our friends to send in some questions. So here they are. This one is from Aaron T. at Aaron Telitz on Twitter. And his question is, who is the only posthumous F1 world champion?
That I have absolutely no idea because Aaron decides to race, and I have no idea in racing questions whatsoever.
Some fun facts for you guys. Today, Corey was making fun of Aaron, and Aaron sent me this question as a hard one because he knew Corey would not get it right.
Yeah, that's correct. You got me on that one.
Yeah. I do not remember how to correctly pronounce his name again, but I will say it is Jochen Rindt.
Sounds good to me.
I probably messed that up, and I am sorry to all of Germany. After that, we'll move on to a trivia question from Jason J. from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Who's Jason?
That's a fun thing that we're apparently going to move into the podcast. He asks, who purchased Alaska and from what country?
It's from Russia.
That is correct.
Oh, a two-part question. I believe the price was 10 cents an acre as well. James Monroe?
It is not. It is William Seward.
That's a good question.
That is a very good question. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jerry. I don't know what Jason is.
Who's Jason? Next, we'll move on to a question from Kyle C. at Kyle Coche on Twitter. His question is, what is the capital of the European Union?
In true American fashion, I don't know this one. Geneva?
It is not. It is Brussels.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Jean-Claude Van Damme. We will next move on to your second to last question from Lucas T. from Farmington, Minnesota. His question is, who was the first athlete to be selected as an all-star in both the NFL and the MLB?
Oh, that's Bo Knows.
That is
Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson.
Absolutely.
You are correct.
Yes.
Now we'll move on for your last question from Michael D. from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He asks, what planet has a longer day than its year?
I believe it's the planet closest to the sun. I believe it's Venus, having a year that lasts 28 of our days, or a day that lasts 28 of our days, and a year that lasts like 16 of our days.
And it would be Venus.
All right.
Which is also a great song by Bananarama.
Of course. The more you know on that one, too.
The more you know. It's a great song by Bananarama. All right. And that is the end of our questions from you listeners.
Yes, thank you guys very, very much for listening, as well as thank you to our friends for reaching out and giving the questions this week. Next week, I will be taking the questions and giving them to Brian. If you guys, as listeners, would like to reach out and give us any questions to